Heaven and Ale. Nah, not feeling that one. Let's see. Maybe Hell and Wine. No, why would those two things go together? It doesn't make any sense either. Hey, what? Yeah, well, it's not like the game actually has any theme. I don't need to worry about whether it's like thematically accurate or not. I just need two words that go together. One of them preferably alcoholic. How hard can it be? Grimsby and cider. No, I like cider. I don't want to associate it with that. No, that's not fair. What can I say? We've had beer, ale, cider. We've had wine. What else is there? Let's see. Come on, gotta think. Gondor and orange juice. Okay, now you're not even trying. Hey guys, we're back to business as usual, and I've got a little bit of a sinus throat, so bear with me as I do some of these recent contents, but we're looking at a fairly, well, I say famous game. It's famous if you're in Germany, but I don't think it's had as much buzz in America and UK, and that's Heaven and Ale by Kennerspiel. The reason I say famous in Germany is, well, Kennerspiel is based in Hamburg, Germany, so that's kind of their main locale, but also because this was the winner of the 2018 Kennerspiel Award. Kennerspiel is kind of like the more strategic option of the three different awards. They do a Kinderspiel for kids, they do a Spiel des Jahres for like sort of family weight level, and then they do Kennerspiel, which is meant to be the more strategic level games. Although, I have seen a weird mix of games on all three of those categories where I'm like, okay, really? For kids? Really? Strategic? Really? Family? So it's always subject to a bit of a debate. It's not like it's done by public vote or anything. It's basically like a secret council, the White or something, and basically, come up with these games and then vote on them. And, for the most part, they tend to pick their winners pretty well, although not always. But Heaven and Ale, ignoring the fact that it had an award, what's it all about? Well, you can forget about the two words there for now, but we'll get onto that later. In Heaven and Ale, you are taking control of ancient monasteries and their respective brewery. The idea is that you are brewing ale and beer using your monks in order to harvest resources from your gardens. There are several types of resources that you have to provide and several different monks who are willing to prepare the work. But in essence, you are surrounding your garden with various tiles in a manner subject to engine building style games, where you are attempting to gain as much resources and money as you can while leveling up these various counters along the side of your track. The idea being that once you can get them to the top of your player board, they will start scoring points much in the same manner as a Reiner Knizia game, where the lowest value will be the big definer for your points. Each round you will take it in turns to move your piece across a board in which there is no dice. You choose where you want to move, but you can't go backwards, and everything is finite on the board. So you have to balance between what you need desperately and how much you can potentially pick up in one round of the board. Depending on the player count, there will be X number of rounds, and at the end of those rounds you will see where your tokens are on your player board and associate points based on a ratio system which is defined by your brewmaster Meeple and how far that goes. Essentially, you are trying to build your garden in the most efficient way possible, surrounding the shed tiles with monks and resources so that they can trigger as often as possible. Do you need a balance of sunny tiles in order to get more of the tokens to move, or do you need more of the shaded tiles in order to get more money so you can afford to buy more resources? Everything is useful, nothing is a dud, and on top of this, you are also trying to meet the criteria for various endgame scoring objectives. And naturally, at the end, the winner is the one with the most victory points.
Of course!
And welcome back. Yeah, slightly different format. Yeah, this is something I'm kind of umming and ahhing with for Season 3, where I want to sort of go over the overview as quickly as possible, and preferably with pictures, rather than me sort of talking about the game face to face. I don't know, I'm umming and ahhing, see, let me know what you think. But that's essentially the gist of Heaven and Ale. It is an engine building Euro game. And firstly, we'll quickly talk about the theme. Non-existent. Does not exist. Does not compute. This could be called anything, it could be anything and anything. Everything and everything. It really makes no difference. When you're playing this game, you don't even remember you're making ale. You barely even remember that you're in a cloister, apart from the fact they refer to a piece as a monk. There really is no theme tag with this game, so if you were hoping for something that felt like you were brewing ale, don't go near this because it blatantly is nothing like that. Purely mechanical. Of course, the mechanics of are they good or not? We'll get onto that later. Component-wise, I'm in an R. The box is twice the size it needs to be. You can squeeze all the components into a box about half this size. The only reason it's like this is because of the boards. The board itself, the main one folds, but your player boards are a square and they don't fold. Ideally, it would have been good if they actually made those foldable, because then you literally could put this in a box half the size. It doesn't need to be this big. But, a lot of games are guilty of this annoyance, really. This is something that publishers really, that box is obviously the cheapest one to get. As soon as you start fiddling with the sizes, it becomes more expensive, so that's just the way they do it, really. Unless they're planning to expand this at a later date, so who knows? I don't know of anything in the works. Components are average. You've got some little pillars for, the various coloured tokens. The tiles themselves are fairly thin cardboard. The artwork is subjectively good. It's colourful. It kind of pops on the table. Some of it is a bit muted, particularly your own player boards, but you've got the different colour resources. You've got the main central board with all the resource tokens and monks. That does lend itself to a bit of colour. In terms of whether I actually like the artwork itself, it's kind of odd. It's not really a style I go for, but that's a subjective matter. It still looks nice. I would not call this bad artwork. It's just simply a case of what do you like, what floats your boat. I still at least give this props that when it sits on the table and I'm playing it, it's colourful. It's not bland, it's not all browns and greys everywhere, there's greens in a lot of places, but then you've got the different colour resources of blue, yellow, white, green and brown, and it sort of pops, but this isn't going to win any artwork or component awards. It's basically as standard as it needs to be. Nothing in here is particularly bad. There's certainly no cubes, which is nice. But it's not exactly gonna win any awards for that. It's not gonna make you go, oh god, this is beautiful. Yeah, no, not really. So in terms of the mechanics themselves, if this has got no theme, do the mechanics back it up? Thankfully, yeah, they kind of do. I'm not gonna say this is amazing, blows my mind. So winning the Kennerspiel award? Not entirely certain on that one. But mechanically, it still works quite cool. I like the idea that you're going around this board and you can't go backwards. And I know thematically that doesn't make quite a lot of sense. Like I say, this game has no theme anyway. But that lends itself to some good decision making where you really want certain tiles, but you're fighting against the opponents for them. Not to mention, you're looking ahead thinking, if I buy lots now, am I going to be able to afford this as I go round? I really need to score that particular tile, because you effectively score when you want to. And you score based on resources, on the values of tiles, on the monks you've used. So you're trying to get the money in your tokens to move in that respect. But how you do it is up to you. And you're thinking, I really want to score that this round. I need to get to that space, but I think blue is going to do this. He's going to nick that space before I do. Should I go there now? Or should I pick up these resources en route and hope it's still available? I don't know. And you get that constantly, particularly in the later rounds, as scoring becomes more prevalent. And that's a slight flaw. I don't like the fact that in the first couple of rounds, the barrel and the scoring tiles, the spaces, are practically never used. Because you've got nothing on your table. What do you want to score? There's not much point. And you obviously aren't going to meet those objectives until at least halfway through the game. So you find that a good, say, quarter of the board becomes non-existent for the first couple of rounds, when all you're doing is picking up resource tiles and monks, and nothing else. That tends to dissipate once you get halfway through the game and people actually start thinking about picking up a scoring tile, but even then it's kind of like, I wish there was an incentive to score early, because there really isn't. If you score early, you're not getting anywhere near enough value for the scoring disc, and you can only score each thing once. So you really don't want to do it too early, but then you can't leave it until much later either, because chances are you might not get enough opportunities to score because people are nicking your space. Like I say, there are tough decisions to make, and I like that the movement along the track facilitates that in a good way. In terms of putting the tiles on your board surrounding the sheds and activating tiles, that's good if you like engine building and triggering combos. The idea is that for every tile you put on your board, you want to trigger it as often as possible. Triggering it only once in the game is not very efficient, but if you can find a way for a monk or a shed or something like that to trigger it multiple times, you're getting the most value out of it. And that's a fun little aspect of like thinking, how am I going to build my map in such a way that this will work? And when it comes together, it does feel pretty good when it comes together. The closest thing I can think of, and I'll mention this again at the end, is kind of like, think Castles of Burgundy, where you were putting like the little hexagon things on the map, and that was based on dice rather than here where there's no dice. But it has that similar feeling. You're building the map in such a way that you're trying to trigger off combos. Here, it's kind of similar as well. You're building your cloister in such a way that when you surround a shed and you put the tile on, it will trigger these two tiles, one of which is a monk, which will trigger these tiles, and you want to set up chain effects. You need the resources, and you need them on both sides of your cloister, but you can't forget the monks. And you can't do vice versa either. No monks, then you don't get as much value out of your resource tiles. No resource tiles, then the monks might as well be standing there doing nothing because they're not going to activate anything. So there's definitely a nice little balance you need, and again, this is credit to the game and how it works. Now I say, when things go well, it feels good. It's kind of odd. It's hard to tell whether you're doing well in this game unless you really find that your tokens are barely moving and you see someone else doing much better. But this is very punishing as a Euro game. You get this impression during the game that you're not doing as well as you could, particularly when others are chaining off bonuses. So you almost feel like you can call the winner sort of halfway through the game, which is a little bit off-putting. But on top of that, the scoring at the end is it's not a slap in the face, it is literally a sword through the heart. Because you'll have played this game and you'll have maybe had a good time, depending on your preferences, but you won't necessarily feel like, I don't think I'm going to win, but hopefully I get a respectable score. And then you realise your score is nil. Because you've not got one of the tokens up to the top of the track, and suddenly that's the lowest value, and your lowest value is nil, therefore your score is nil, plus a few random points for barrels, and it's just, oh, that kind of sucked. Unless you're close to the victory, you don't feel like you earned anything in the game if your score is that low. So you've got to be prepared that the game at the end might literally just punch you in the face and say, you didn't do well, you lose, fail, fatality. And you'll play it again and try and do better, but it could have been a little bit nicer about it. But certainly, as the game progresses, you get this impression of whether you're going to do well or not. You already sort of realise, I'm barely activating anything, I got no money, this game's almost a write-off. Whereas somebody else who's doing well is kind of like, yep, this is all working, my engine is brewing very nicely. Thankfully, the game is not too long though. Playable from 2 to 4 players, no solo mode, and the game doesn't usually take more than 90 minutes. At very most, with AP players, you could take 2 hours, but that would be too long for enjoying this game. The rounds scale based on a number of players, but the spaces don't. I think they should have maybe added a bit more scaling options, because what you find out is in 4 players, everything is like, you play 6 rounds, but everything is like, it's all used up and the entire board is gone by the time you have gone round. Whereas with 2 players, you don't play many rounds, but you've got freedom over what stuff you want to pick, but then you've only got so much money to actually do it with. So you find yourself zooming around the board relatively quickly. So 2-player games are definitely short. I mean, you can get a 2-player game of this done in less than an hour pretty easily, once you know what you're doing. But if people are reasonably quick with their turns and you don't drag it out, you could do a 4-player game of this in about 90 minutes. Let's say an hour and 3/4, 2 hours tops, including teaching and the odd bit of AP. Not a bad length. If it was longer than 2 hours, I'd be saying, way too long, this has just outstayed its welcome. 90 minutes though, it's a pretty decent length, so I gotta give credit for that. I'm getting annoyed with all these Euros coming out saying that they must take 3 hours plus no matter what. No, it's nice to just get 90 minutes, wrap up a game where you're like, whew, I made some hard decisions there, but, well, that was good. Shall we go again, or shall we play something else? When you've given yourself that choice after enjoying a game, then, all is well and good. So Heaven and Ale overall, it's a decent engine-building Euro game. I don't think it's the most amazing thing ever though, because of several reasons. One, for me, I'm big on theme. The fact that this has no theme whatsoever makes it a hard sell to get to the table. Secondly, it's not, I compared it to Castles of Burgundy, and if you're thinking about this one, maybe you should try Castles of Burgundy first and see whether that's, you know, an alternative take for you. This is something I'm going to do in future videos, actually give you alternate games, so hopefully you'll like that. But like I say, it kind of feels good, but that whole punishing aspect of not feeling you're doing very well whilst doing these mechanics, it can be quite off-putting. And the third issue that puts me off a bit is the replay value. It's quite limited because the resources don't change, the monks don't change, the scoring doesn't change. The only thing that, and even the objectives don't change. All of them are available every single game. You can't do them all, and you'll pick and choose your battles, but that's it. There's nothing else. You don't shuffle them and deal out ones at random. No, you get every single scoring, objective, resource, and monk tile that there is. So replay value means that you're kind of seeing the same stuff every game. The only thing that really changes things up a notch is the player count and the order in which the resources come out, because it's basically come out of a random draw pile. So you might have one game where in the first round you end up with a bunch of 5s and everything's really expensive, or you know, in the first round everything's all nice and cheap, so you've already loaded up your map. So you'll get some fluctuations like that. So I'm not going to say the replay value here is dead, but it's not going to, I feel it's not going to stand the test of time as well as other Euro games that introduce more replay value. I think that you'll get a fair amount of play out of this, but then you'll think, need an expansion, need something new, need something to, you know, kick it up a notch. And I'm hoping that maybe Kennerspiel's working on an expansion to this, because let's face it, it got an award. What award you won? You know, I'm pretty certain it did win. I don't know. I'll correct it in the video if I'm wrong, but you know, so hopefully it will get something later, but there's a kind of my niggles for it. Overall though, I do like it. It's not difficult to teach. The rules are relatively simple. The rulebook had a couple of ambiguities in places, but for the most part, the rulebook's fairly well laid out. And it's just, like I say, if you like engine building Euros, particularly something like Castles of Burgundy, I think you'll go nuts for this one. So for me, personally, I can probably give it a 7. It's decent, does the job, but it's not something I would call mind-blowing. If you put this up against other opportunities for the year, I probably wouldn't have said that this was a Kennerspiel winner as such. But like I say, it's overall a decent game, and I'm going to hang on to it for now. So that's it from me. I'll see you on the next Broken Meeple review. And regardless of what alcoholic drink you decide to have, remember, it's still only a game. Just enjoy the drink. Take care. See you next time.